Sounds good.
So I'm gonna call the August 16th Public Safety Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Randy Sweet,
Here.
Tammy Roll.
Here.
Doug Gruner,
Here.
we got Candace and Kevin are absent at this point.
Very good. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4, public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the PSC on any issue. Please observe the time limit of 3 minutes. While the PSC encourages input from residents, it may not discuss or act on any issue that is not duly noticed on the agenda.
We do have nobody online, and we have somebody here, Brandon and Ally Booth, 2709 Church Street, and public comment on nuisance ordinance.
Go ahead, guys. Welcome.
So we wanted to talk to those about getting a nuisance ordinance in place. We have something that's beyond a neighborly dispute. To the point, we have 4 restraining orders on the people next to us. We've had threats against our kids' lives. I've got videotape of several incidences of disturbances that no matter what we've done, they don't stop. We recently had a dozen SWAT cars and drones and canines searching for them just a few weeks back. I had a very concerning video that I took a couple nights prior to that, where he was in the street, high out of his mind, screaming about shooting cops and civilians. The most that was able to be done was a disorderly conduct ticket. I think a nuisance ordinance is something that could put an end to things before it could get any worse. I've asked the landlord several occasions. He refuses to evict. He's aware of pretty much all of the issues going on. Anytime there is one, I make him aware of it by a message on his answering machine. He will not kick them out. He knows them personally, and he doesn't want to be the bad guy. And I understand his position, but for the safety of us, our children, other people in the community, I think they need an ordinance where the village can take action when the landlord refuses to. Tony and his department have done it as much as they possibly can, when they can, but this is not, if it's not an every other week thing, it's like a weekly thing. The police are there all the time. And I just hope that the village can do something, and this is my idea for you guys.
Thank you. Ally, do you have anything to add?
No, it's, I mean, besides that, it's been years. It's not like just this year or last year. It's been going on before we even bought the home too. And we've been there for almost, I think,
8 years.
12, yeah, 8 or 9 years now. So even the lady before us. And I know that there's been, when we've mentioned it before about what we could do, or a possibility of what we could do. I know several people around here as well are well aware of them and have had several issues, the neighbors around us too. So like I said, it hasn't been just like this year or last year, it's been for quite some time.
Well, thank you for sharing that with our committee. Just as someone from Cross Plains, I'm sorry for your experience, because that's not what Cross Plains is about. So appreciate the coming to me. Thank you.
Yeah, I love everything here except this issue.
Okay. Appreciate you coming and speaking up. Thank you.
And feel free to come back and speak to us.
Thank you.
Anything on the, nobody on?
Nobody's on. Nope.
Okay. Item number 5, approval of minutes from the June 21st, 2022 PSC meetings.
I move to approve.
Motion from Randy and a second from Tammy. Any further discussion or questions on minutes?
I'm sorry, who motion?
Randy motion first, Tammy second.
Okay,
Got a motion and a second, no further discussion. All those in favor of approving the minutes from June 21st signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying the same. Passes unanimously. Report of PSC officers. Chairperson, I'm excited we have our yard signs done. And we'll talk a little bit later in the meeting, but we had good response. Probably got 25 of them out at National Night Out. And really, you know, what we're trying to do is engage more people in our safety process. Since you guys are right on Church Street, I would love to give one.
We
Actually,
have-
take one. Oh, you already got them? Yeah, on National Night Out, okay, awesome. So starting to see them pop up and we'll start getting them out more. Hopefully Tammy and Randy can take one, or a couple if you got some neighbors. Our plan right now is we're gonna have 100 here and 100 down at Montague's. So Candace can get them out. We're not making anybody pay for them, but if somebody would like to make a donation, we'll just kind of recommend 5 or 10. I have about $70 that I've given to Brian, and you know, I think you know, if word gets out and things keep going along, we get a little bit of money, we can have a little batch, but that's kind of how we're planning to get it out. I was waiting until after tonight's meeting, and I'm hoping both social media, get a little more close going about.
Who do we give the donations to?
You can give them to me or whoever's at this office, or Candace is gonna have a little jar for them. So I have a little jar made, but I gave one to Candace too. So. And if you take 5, and you know, you can just bring them to the next meeting too. If you bring 15 or 20 bucks, or if someone wants to pay a couple bucks, they can just bring it to the meeting. That's all I have. Any other public safety committee members have comment?
I would just like to thank you for the victory parade after the Tri-Counties for me. It was a good year. It seems in the sound that you guys just went through every neighborhood in the which my kids run swim team was like, quick, done, then it's done, but no, that was great. Here, just keep going and going and going. So thank you.
That's an annual tradition. They must win.
Starting
They
again,
must win
yes.
every year.
Few years off, but now it's back up top.
Very good. Good. All right, report of first responders, Cross Plains area EMS. Kevin.
All right, so far for the year, we've responded to 269 calls, which is up from last year. I don't know the exact number of how much we're up, but so far in August, we've already had 29 calls. We're only halfway through, so it's been very busy. Erica comes back September 1st. But yeah, everything is going good. Looking for extra help. We have signs out, yard signs. So if you guys know of anybody, get the word out, we'll take volunteers.
How many positions do you have?
We'll take as many volunteers as we can. So we don't have any like full-time openings right now. So volunteers,
And she was off. I'm sure you do.
correct.
So really good.
Yep, everything's good.
All right, Cross Plains Fire Chief, Justin.
For the year so far, we're at 81 calls. I just checked today. This time last year, we were at 62. So pushing almost 20 calls higher than we were last year this date. 42 of those in the village, which is up actually quite a bit. Last year, the village and the town of Cross Plains were neck and neck all the way up. But for this year, 42 in the village and 24 for the town of Cross Plains, and then only 8 in the town of Berry, which is, that's pretty normal. So villages, for whatever reason, I mean, there's no call type that's remarkably higher or anything, just higher call volume for sure. Last night we interviewed 2 new members, two potentially new members. We'll be giving them a call tomorrow, see if they're still interested after the interview. Kind of ongoing recruitment going on. So anybody knows anything, or anybody I should say, send them my way. Last week we had our fire district board meeting. brought up the budget, no action was taken, the meeting was set for an October date. With the date offhand. But major things that were on their budget request was a new roof on the shingle side of the building. We had a quote, or we have had a quote. The board gave some direction to also look at steel roofing potentially instead of shingle. So I'm waiting on some numbers on that for that next meeting. And then our portable radios are starting to need some attention, kind of the same problem. Chief Tony had gone through, we're having problems getting service on that kind of stuff. So two major things that are on the budget, other than that, the normal gasoline going up, electricity going up, natural gas going up. Those little things, but that, I mean, other than that, for our major stuff on our budget, that's what it was. And we're just working through various building projects. We had carpeting installed last Friday upstairs. We'll be looking at doing some more preventative maintenance, some maintenance that needs to be done now, kind of a 20-year-old building, so.
Very good, and you know, like a number, like you guys used to go at lockers.
So, you know, we have 10 open lockers right now. We had a few people actually last week resign to do the, they moved out of the district. One person just kind of gave it up. So that's not to say if I had 15 applicants, I would be out doing 5 more lockers. For
Sure.
Just knowing what the turnover is best. So.
All right, thank you very much, Justin. Crosspoint Police Chief Cole.
Okay, so National Night Out went very well. We had probably about between 400 and 500 people, I would imagine, attend. Well received. We received a lot of compliments for that. Again, kudos to Nikki, who helped, was kind of the spearhead of that. So she did an excellent job with that. The emergency operation plan is just about complete. I'm doing some final touches. As you guys all know, I was asked to take over as emergency management director for the village. I'm just about done with that. So I will be bringing that. We have a meeting scheduled in September, second Monday in September. We'll meet as the team of the emergency operators within the village, and we'll iron it out one more time, and then it'll come here. I'll probably send it out with some time so you can review it. And then it ultimately will go to village board for final approval. That emergency operation plan is, you know, it's kind of encompassing of everything, but it provides checklists based on incident command and who does what and those kind of things to help us during any kind of incident. So we all use different systems. So fire uses Mavis, we use Catmar. There's different systems that we would use for different events, but this operation plan will give us a checklist for, let's say the village president shows up, he will get, this is your list, get that done, that, you know, so it's a lot more organized. So in 2018, when you guys experienced a flood, it's really important to have that operation plan. Things are still going to go sideways, but at least you have a plan and something you can lean on, especially when we get cut off from the rest of the world, which is what happened here. So I have brought that up to as best I can up to speed with the help of a team and the help even with the past administrator, because when I got here, that was one of the things that we started to work on right away. So it's been probably 3 years in the making of just making sure that we're best practices. And so that's where we're at with that. Calls for service, we're at about 1,900 calls, which if you remember last year, we were at 2,600 calls. With 5 months left in the year, we were going to blow that number out of the water pretty easily. Just for instance, this weekend alone, we were extremely busy. I'm just gonna take just a quick note that Candace is super late.
You know, 7:15.
Just gotta write down top. So we're gonna blow that out of the water just for just so you guys get a little bit of picture what we handled just this weekend alone. I was out Saturday and Sunday working investigations. We had a child abuse case, we had a sexual assault of a child case, a strangulation case with a knife, and then we had 4 teenagers break into our Glacier Creek. All cases solved. I mean, I'm just about solved them all, but the reality is that we are just so busy. It's crazy busy. People have asked what what is it that we're so busy? We're no longer that small sleeping town that what existed 30 years ago. This is very much influenced by Madison. People are moving in and out, and so we've got to adapt to those things. Beside, and a lot of our calls are also proactive. You know, my department is in the last 3 years, they've become very proactive, very much in tune with the community. So they're doing a lot of things that maybe before they would wait for the call to come. They're just a lot more out there. So that creates calls too. Lieutenant Reddy should be back in full force August 22nd. He should be back medically cleared to return to work, which I'm excited for because we've been short one for over a year. So that will be very helpful. So knock on wood, hopefully nobody else gets hurt or sick. Let's see, yesterday we spent, the team, my department spent 8 hours working on active threats in every one of the schools. I made them sure they were familiar with the layouts of those buildings. How would we approach? I really want to thank the fire department who came in and worked as our bad guys. So we use what's called simunition rounds and simunition guns. What they do is they fire a round that obviously doesn't penetrate, but it does leave welts, and it come out just about as fast as a bullet, and it leaves kind of a little paint mark, a little chalk mark, and it shows where you've been struck. Of course, we use gear, but still, you get hit in the hands or in the body. You still feel it. So I really want to appreciate them. I did bring in a expert in the emergency response team expert to kind of give us the best practice. I pulled them from an area where I spent a lot of time working, because I wanted to make sure that the staff took this very seriously. Somebody they didn't know, there would be no joking around. Sometimes works better that way, even though they're familiar with people in Dane County. I thought I'm going to bring a perspective from where a guy that's all he does. So it was very well received. I'm going to be working on, I'm already part of a team working on a full scale exercise for the school district. That's about a 3-year plan to get that to do an actual full scale. So it'll be a full scale active shooter at the high school, which will require like probably 200-300 people, just because of the players. You got to have everybody that like it just happened. So the people who responded, the command posts, all of that. So it's going to require funding too. So we're looking at some grants for that, because it'll be grant funded. This year, I did not make a capital improvement. So capital improvement for us is like the squad cars that I brought here, like, hey, I need a squad or I need radios. I did not ask for any capital improvement because the village's focus is to get our wages up. Wages are very, very low. I'm having trouble recruiting people when I just hired somebody, which we got really lucky with that hire, but his starting wage is $24.94. When you can go to Mount Horeb and make $30 an hour, go to Middleton, make $32 an hour. We're just not competitive for our area. So we really got to start getting those wages up. And then just an update on I know we worked really hard on the body cams. I'm still missing pieces because of COVID. It really has created, I mean, we couldn't get the magnets that went, the cameras kind of sit on our chest. I have the cameras. We just don't have the magnet that it sits on. It's back ordered. There's some issues. So, but they promised me that by the end of the month. So I've just been trickling along, whining and sending out emails, nice ones and not so nice ones, but we're getting there. Radios, those radios were 16 years old. There was no parts for them. I did put that on a capital improvement for last year. We did get that approved. I think 6 radios were ballpark of $30,000. They're coming. They tell me that this week they should be here. So it's the same company, so I'm not going to hold my breath, but hopefully that those do come, because there are spots where our radios cut out. One of the spots that sometimes is a dead spot is Quick Trip. And I mean, if anything's going to happen in the middle of the night, it's probably going to be there, because it's, that's what we're open. So very busy. We're still treading water, so we're doing all right. Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Any questions?
questions for Chief Flynn?
Okay.
As we move into committee discussion, unless anybody, I guess, while Brandon and Natalie are here, I wouldn't mind moving item 5 up to number 1 and talk about
Yep.
the discussion of possible action regarding public nuisance ordinance, so that they can be here for that discussion and don't have to stay for the other 4 unless they choose to. So I'll make a motion that we move up agenda item number 5 in committee discussion to talk about it first.
I'll second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
Who did that, Doug and
I
Randy?
had the first, Randy had the second. Everybody okay with moving that item? I got a motion and a second to move item 5 up to number 1 and talk about it first. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed signify by saying the same.
So here's a little history of it. So since 2020, these are the reports on this one house. It's been, to say the word crazy is probably an understatement. It's been frustrated all along. It was mentioned earlier of the resources we just spent on a case. 2 canines, 10 squads, a drone. Huge report, send it to the DA's office, took them about, I'm gonna say about 2 hours for them to send it back and say, quote unquote, the guy's a jerk, but we're not charging him. So he didn't get charged. So then I'm like, okay, well, I don't know, I don't know what else to do. If you look on, I'm not gonna mention his name because we have lots of open cases with him, not only us, but Middleton, you name it, everybody knows who he is. I'm not gonna mention him because the reality is we do have open cases with him. So ultimately, we ended up, I just told the officer, well, we've got to issue some citations then because we've got to do something. We just, so we went municipal. The problem with that is that a lot of our municipal people that sometimes commit these violations, they won't pay the municipal fine. So and then it's not, we don't issue warrants for them because then it costs the village money to house them and to serve the warrants. So then they do a tax intercept. Well, the tax intercept, if someone's not working, they're not getting taxes, so they're not, the punitive damage it's not good. And so ultimately, I've had at least 6 documented calls with the landlord and said, please help us. And my last call was not as friendly. I basically said, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of you not stepping up. I'm tired. I mean, I'm getting phone calls on vacation about this. It's crazy. So I have asked the landlord to do something about it. He refuses. And so I said that I was going to push as hard as I could to get an ordinance that would hold him accountable every time we have to go there. We already have an ordinance in place. It's under nuisance for disorderly house, which that would land on the house. So again, you go back to that person, right? So, or in that case, whoever's renting the place, but it's the same scenario. We write tickets to that person, they don't pay them, and nothing really happens. It's all tickets. So the only thing I can think of is to try to put together an ordinance. Obviously, it's got multiple layers. It's not, this committee won't have the authority to do that. They'll have the authority to recommend, which obviously we've been down that road. I mean, body cams took us a year to accomplish. There'll be a recommendation. I really hope that you guys will recommend a ordinance of that type to hold these landlords accountable. Now, I am not in favor of creating ordinance for one person, right? But we are seeing a little bit of an increase in some of our rental properties with the repeat offenders in different places. This is on Church Street, but Westview Court causes a lot of attention for us. There's drugs and there's all kinds of violence and things like that. So holding those landlords accountable might help us navigate this if they would do some good background checks and be more cautious. And we're not reinventing the wheel. There are other communities. Yep, there's other communities. So somebody on this committee would have to do some of that legwork and find out what you would want. But I am in full support of this. I don't know what else to do. So I just explained to you like that last case is about as drastic as it's gotten. We've arrested him, he gets charged, we cite him, he gets a municipal ticket, he doesn't show up to court, he gets found guilty. It's just this big circle. But that last case really kind of did it for me. I mean, all of these cases, I mean, they're terrible, but this last one with all of, I bet you $5,000 in resources at least for that time.
So an ordinance like this to empower you to go after the landlord.
So you'd have to
It's
almost,
gonna have teeth though, that
Yeah,
we work
yeah.
towards an eviction, so it isn't a continuous
Yeah.
circle.
well, yeah, so the landlord, I mean, the landlords are dependent on their rent. So if that citation is hefty enough and they're not, it's, it's so that every time this is happening, then it's cutting into their profits because I mean, bluntly, I mean, landlords are in it for paying of the rent, right? And so I think if they do a due diligence to do a background, we wouldn't have these issues. I mean, people do slip through the cracks. I mean, you guys have known stories of even police officers slip through the cracks, right? Backgrounds slip through the cracks, but this is excessive. This is, I mean, and there's nothing we can do. Like, we would love to go there and help him move. As you guys will know, we don't have that authority. We can't do that. We don't have any authority to do that. All we can do is hold them accountable to the law, which is what we're doing. But just look at that example of that case. The DA's office refused to charge it. They said it was no more than a disorderly conduct. So they weren't even willing to charge the DC, and they read the report with, I mean, we have drones up, canines, multiple officers chasing him around, and none of that. I mean, we had him charged with multiple crimes, including resisting. I mean, the definition of resisting was met 20 times. I don't know. I don't know what else to do. I mean, this is one home. If it was just one home, I would caution you to create an ordinance for one home, but we're seeing an increase in other areas. And also, it's not something that is out of question. It's, of course, like I said, it's going to be multi-tiered. You got to have the village board approval on it, and it's going to go through the legal team of the village board. So even whatever you refer, it might be, switched. But I am in full support of this. I know my department is in full support of this. Enough is enough.
So what's the first part?
I just have a quick question, maybe first, Randy. Is there an ability under the existing ordinance to fine the landlord?
I think we wouldn't necessarily have to create an additional ordinance. We could create an adjustment to it, or not an adjustment, but amend it. Yes, it probably would be easier in that it's already in there with disorderly houses. But there is nothing that specifically holds a landlord. It holds a property, the person. So in this case, it would hold the person who's renting, right? Not having a disorder, but it's no more than a DC ticket. You could pick either one, right? So it's no more, but right now we need to put teeth on the landlords to make them accountable for the people they are renting to.
Is this good?
No, I
know
don't
what it is, but it could be 5 more coming in the next 2 years.
completely agree. I was just thinking if there's some way besides a phone call, like a $500 fine or $1,000 fine to that owner.
Yeah.
That might
I mean, we have $500 fines. I can tell you those sting. Usually they fall under narcotics, but it's not unheard of.
Okay, and then I am not the most patient person, which some of you probably kind of know. I think it might be best to also engage the village attorney and ask and see if he can also help us with the best practice, where he might be able to call a lawyer friend, or, hey, this happens all the time in Middleton, here's what. Middleton
He
does.
works with other villages,
Yep.
so
Yeah,
I agree
and I will volunteer to be the public safety committee member who works with him.
I guess my advice would be take a motion on this to accept this proposal that we're going to create that public nuisance ordinance adjustment or whatever, and then give Doug authority from you guys that he will work with
The village
the
attorney.
village attorney And
I mean, I think
also,
that's the
and also
way-
village president. you'll
Yeah,
have
and
to
I
go
think
through.
that's the way it gets done quicker versus,
I mean, you'll still have to bring it, so
It'll still come
you
back
have to
here.
go to, no, it'd have to go to the village board. Well, yeah, it'll probably have to come back here. to
because he's
approve
gonna
it
have some
here,
findings and we'll have some
Yeah.
findings.
And
But
then,
hopefully it comes closer to moving quicker
Yes.
if we involve, and I'm sorry, I'm completely spacing his name right now, but.
Paul.
I'm sorry. And he's good. He can bring us what's out there and then it won't need, after we come up with something, it won't need his review and say, oh, you missed this spot or you missed that. If he brings it to us and it's already an ordinance in place and used, that should help us be moved.
so the landlord knows that I'm really proposing this. That was my last conversation with him. He said he was going to try to do something about his tenants. Nothing's been done.
I will make that motion. What thing you said.
Okay, so the motion,
The motion basically is for me to gather some information with the village attorney and bring it back to the next meeting for a proposal. That's what I'm thinking I'm hearing. And
so also including village president, because I think you probably
fine.
should include him.
yeah, Paul and Jay.
Okay.
So,
Because I agree with Doug, just let's move this along, don't let this fall into year long.
So I think what I'll do is, okay, well, let's first see if this passes. Doug, together.
We got a motion from Randy, could use a second,
Second.
that I'll work with the village attorney and the village president to get a draft and use best practices to try to bring a proposed or draft ordinance to the next meeting.
Okay.
I got a motion and a second from Canvas. Any further discussion? You guys have any further discussion?
Just happens.
Yeah. It's very disappointing to me because I grew up on Church Street and it's not a good experience.
We try to
Some
move
of
things
the ordinances that I've looked into, not only consist of finding the landlord. If they continue to know of the issues and refuse to do anything about them. I've seen somewhere that went to the extent of making it that he's no longer allowed to have that as a rental property. You don't obviously get the property taken from him, it's his, but that he can't rent it to future.
Yeah,
people.
that would fall under zoning. So there are some things, but yeah, I mean, and you could look into that too. I mean, as the last effort, if somebody is, and I would probably do it all at once instead of, okay, we've issued citations, because I'm gonna have to bring it back here now. He's paying those fines or he's not paying the fines. We're gonna revamp it. So I mean, I think the penalty should be stiff, so it's serious and we're
It's gotta
done.
mean something.
Yeah.
Some of the conversations the landlord and I have had, he just talks about getting one person out of the house that is the primary cause of issues. That person is not even on the lease on that house. But the parent of that person is, and they should, being the leasee should be held responsible to what their guests or family is doing at that residence. And I'd like it so that, even if it's somebody that's not on the lease causing the disturbances or the threats or whatever, that anyone in that household is held liable. It means that, yes, they get to the point.
My guess is, I mean, when you talk to him, my guess is that you have to really have it ironed out. It can't just be, I don't think it should be left at the discretion of the officer, because officers have a lot of discretion to decide, okay, is this one fall under? I think it should be, I think the ones that I've seen are based on violations, like, okay, 1, 2, 3, done. That kind of thing. So documented violations. So that gives a clear direction to the officer, like, yep, this was a violation of law, second violation of law, third, something like that. I mean, Paul will know what's best practice for sure, or can find it. You got a motion, a second?
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed signify by saying the same. Passes unanimously.
Okay.
And if you want to shoot me an email or with a link or anything else you've done, you want to shoot me a proposal ordinance or something from other places.
Okay.
It's out on the village website. My email address is, or I give you my personal one too. Yep. No problem.
When you do that, just copy me on the email so that I know which ordinance you're looking at and make sure we don't have a conflict. Because there's some ordinances already in place that might sometimes could conflict with existing ordinances. We have found those in other ordinances that just haven't been updated over the course of a decade or something. So just, that's important that we cross-reference those ordinances, so we actually can do it.
Yeah, I'll maybe ask him about jumping flag and something immediately as quick as we can.
Okay. Number one was,
Oh, yeah, let's go back to item number one, discussion of possible action regarding safe ride program.
I've put this on here now 4 meetings and Kevin hasn't been here. I think we should just take it off and revisit it like next summer when it becomes a topic. Unless you guys want to make, I don't understand what this means. Like, what are we saying, that we're in favor of safe rides? Of course we are.
We are, I think the idea was maybe a little more formal program or something like they do with bar buddies in Sauk County, something like that. I can tell you from what I've observed, I do think some people are starting to get smarter, especially our residents. I know we still have a challenge with people coming through our village.
Yeah, that's our challenge.
But there's more Ubers, there's more people walking, there's, you know,
And our guys are well informed that if anybody calls us, just give a ride. It's just much easier for us. And it doesn't matter where they need to go. I mean, we've traveled far, so it's fine.
I guess as far as I'm concerned, I'm fine with taking that off and kind of leaving it.
Thank you, Jason.
Everybody else sorry if that kind of falling off our plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just let that go. Item 2, then discussion of possible action regarding supporting new officer position.
Okay, so just an update. So the village president had tasked us to come up with department heads to come up with what is important for the village as far as structures and new developments, and what's important as far as staffing. So everybody says the same thing. We're busy, right? So we need to start looking at, plus if we're building a new police department, right now is the time to start thinking about staffing needs and things like that. We were tasked with that. The building one I won't talk about because it really has nothing to do with this. But the position, I think at this point, we should probably table it. Department heads have agreed that in 2023, there would be a hiring freeze. We would not add any positions in hopes that the village board will really take into account the wages that are desperately in need of adjustment. So 2023, that's kind of out. 2024, there was a vote by department heads. The vote came in that they would prefer a public, or a library position, even though I made a complete argument of all of what I just told you. Obviously I wasn't excited about that, but I am going to support them because I said I would, even though, you know, it's a democracy. I think it's the wrong way to go. We are in public safety is more important than probably any other entity. I mean, people aren't going to come here if they don't feel safe. If we ever want to get to a 24-hour department, I don't see it happening without adding 2 positions minimally. Marshall, which we get compared to a lot to Marshall, they are at 9 positions. We are at 6. So technically we would need 3, and they're short ones. So they're normally 10, and it sounds like they're just going to leave it at 9. So we're 3 down, and we're handling more than they are. We're busier than they are. Me and the chief have had some good discussions about that. And I honestly don't know how we're doing it, because like on a weekend night, like this weekend, the burglary, the kids going into the school, 2 o'clock we were done because I didn't have any more staffing to handle any more time. 3:30 this happened. So anybody who knows anything drives past here or walks past here and says, oh, no cars, they're gone, you know. So that is a problem because we're got a lot of people driving through here all night long. There's stuff going on all night long. We're probably at a stage where we probably should have double coverage on a weekend, have a little bit of an overlap. Just to make sure that we're, if we get busy on something, there's still somebody floating around. It's very hard to even staff one shift, and normally they're 8 hours. So I have committed that that we'll definitely always have 16-hour coverage. But even that sometimes is challenging if somebody calls in sick and overtime. So I have a $10,000 overtime budget, and that I'm at 8,900 already just because of the absences of officers. That's just to keep us maintained. I have asked the village president to allow me to go 10,000 above that throughout the year. I don't think I'll get to that because things tend to taper off as winter hits, but people still have to have vacations. They still have to have these things. So my thoughts on this is there's really no reason to do anything right now because the village board is probably not going to take this on in 2023. And in reality, the wages are probably more important. I would much rather keep working. I mean, just this 2-week period, I worked 115 hours just to keep things afloat because I've got the lieutenant gone. So I would almost prefer that just to make sure my staff, gets a fair and equitable wage. So I'd like to, I think, just take it off for now and we revisit it at the end of 2023 and then fight for that position because it'll definitely be desperately needed at that time.
Well, I guess the one comment I would make, being on the public safety committee and also being a resident, is it would boggle my mind that if 90% of our residents were more in favor of another police officer versus another person at the library, and I love the library, but
Here.
I don't want to lose sight of, I think, the priority for keeping us safe and keeping our community safe is the community of police officers that we have. So the first priority to me is staffing. Second priority is definitely to replace the building as well. However, so I'll be supportive of the wage increase for certain, but I would also be more supportive of the village board level to have another safety officer because we also know they have a lot of seniority and are close to retirement also.
Yeah,
So that's all that.
I mean, in reality,
Staffing changes in the department.
well, in reality, this is what's going to happen. So in 6 years' time, my new hire will be my senior officer. In 6 years' time, everybody will have either retired or left. I've got one officer who's looking at relocating in the Fox Valley area, and I can't blame that officer for wanting to progress. Other than that officer, the other officers are all within retire. Like 3 of them could say, we're done, thank you, at any time. So they've committed to me that they're going to stay at least another couple of years to kind of balance the ship, get us closer to the new building, new hires, those kind of things. I will definitely be losing my administrative assistant. And that is, you guys have no idea what kind of loss that is. That is a huge loss to the department. She's the heartbeat of the department because she knows where everything should be going on and all the questions he's got an answer for. So that'll be huge. But I've got senior officers that will be leaving within 2 years. And then I have another officer that will be gone in 6. So in 6 years' time, our new hire will be the most senior officer. And hopefully I'm still alive to be here because I feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack some days. So that
Is the village board aware of?
Absolutely.
I've said it
So I
a
think-
dozen times.
I mean,
And absolutely.
I'm struggling with the idea that we
The
don't
village-
look forward thinking.
The village. I think I can pretty safely say what I just said. Unfortunately, that's not exactly the way the budget process works, right?
Yeah, and we understand that. And so we're team players. That's why I didn't put out something for capital improvement this time, but I mean, service is important. And
I think
And that's a challenge, the board did take a significant increase September of last year, however, what happened after we did the 5 or 8% increase? Inflation was unbelievable, and everybody is battling the same types of things, so. I personally have the belief that we need to be competitive in all our positions. And that's the starting point, that's the entry level for the, to be a community, right? Right. So,
But I mean, I just think there should be, if we don't do anything in 23, okay. But
well, I
if
think
we have
we'll need
a
to adjust
discussion
the
about
wages
what's gonna
again.
happen. in
As we
23.
get new people on, hopefully they'll start to stabilize. It should be a little easier.
Yeah, I'm hoping that
Be
they-
more competitive.
that they focus on the I mean, yes, I have senior staff and yes, you know, they've put in a lot of time, but they will be moving on. And so I think if you're thinking forward thinking, you really have to help with the starting wages because we're starting over
Of
again.
course.
And so to give on the upper end where we're gonna lose it, it's not doesn't make as much sense. I mean, they probably wouldn't agree with me, but it doesn't make as much sense than to do, you know, make sure that the starting wages are up. So that we can hire, recruit, and retain new staff. So, I mean, that's my thoughts. I mean, that's my 2 cents worth, you know, with regarding to that line item.
I also think most of the village knows that you're not a 24/7.
Oh, they definitely don't know. We've had to make multiple posts, like people wonder, okay, they don't even know that, but they also don't know that we don't have someone sitting at the office waiting for their call. Like they think we have our own dispatch center. You know, those are the complaints I get. But recently I've been getting more complaints about other agencies handling our calls, like, because if it's kind of a catch-22, if you start creating a community, which I think that our department has in the last at least 3 years,
Absolutely.
community policing agency that is holding things at a very high level with community. And then you're off and then another agency steps in and handles it. It's just not quite the same. And so those are the earfuls I get, you know, your officers were here, and then I let them vent, and then well, when did this happen? And then well, it happened at 4 a.m. We weren't on. And it's not to blame anybody else, but also those agencies, if I'm putting myself in their shoes, I'm thinking, I've got all this area to cover and I gotta be here covering this, and they get stressed out too. So it's like, it's just a number. So,
It's a balance and a challenge.
Yeah.
I've been aware, you know, of our partnership with Dane County. And for the most part, people would flip if we hired a lot of extra staff and their taxes went up. I mean, it's a balancing act, and I'm appreciative of the inroads we're making with community policing, that more people engaged. I think that's a step forward for everybody. You know, the biggest key would be to prevent these things, right? And then there's less investigations, less criminal. It's a challenge as you grow. It's some kind of growing pains. Once we get to a certain population level, then we need the 24/7.
yeah, 5,000. Once you get to 5,000, that's it. You have to have 24-hour coverage.
Be a kick in the pocketbook for other services too.
So I think we gotta start thinking that. I mean, we're not that far away.
We have to be looking. for-
Yeah,
It's not gonna go away.
no, it's gonna keep growing. People are building left and right. Every time you go up the hill, somebody else has bought a lot. and
We're
they're
towards getting the department to 9, and by that time, then the others are at 15.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I mean, if we could get a couple officers, I think I would comfortably say we could cover 24 hours, you know, at least one on, you know, not doubles, but at least one on where there's somebody taking calls all the time, unless they're on another call, but then they can pick it up later. Right now, the way the process is, for instance, this burglary thing happened at 3:30 in the morning. So I come in, I check the logs of anything that's happened beyond our time, and anything, if the department handled a vehicle lockout or a noise complaint, something that's very minor, doesn't matter, right? Because if we're busy, it's, you know, the taxpayers of Cross Plains pay double taxes. You pay for both services. But if it's anything of significance, I get a hold of the person who's in charge of Dane County at the West Precinct and say, I need everything. We will handle it from here. Thank you for your help. So I don't leave it in their hands at that point. And then I correct anything that is more community oriented to bring us back to where we need to be with regards to the case and that kind of thing. So for instance, burglary, it was after hours, but they handled the initial and I took it over. And they're glad to give it over, they're not looking for any more work. So it just felt more beneficial for us to have it on our plate rather than anybody else. So anyway, so that's the long and short of it.
Okay. So we'll take no action, but we're all in support.
Okay.
Item 3, discussion of possible action regarding allowed unnecessary noise.
I put these on for you, that one and the fireworks one.
Okay, so I had a couple of complaints, mainly about fireworks. And I think, as far as, chief put the ordinances with our packet, as far as my way of thinking of things, basically the noise ordinance is 10 p.m. For amplified music, amplified noise, things like that. As a good neighbor and a respectful person, I would never mow my lawn, things like that, or, leaf blowers, all music, whatever. And so the complaints were over 4th of July weekend. There's a lot on social media. I witnessed people still shooting off fireworks at like 1:45. And that's kind of ridiculous. And what I wanted to do was just kind of bring it up here, take a look at what our existing ordinances are. And maybe, I don't know and talk about it and see if there's a need for an adjustment or not. To me, I think the 10 p.m. works pretty well. I think our businesses follow it pretty well who have music. There is a 10 to midnight thing where they could get an amplified noise permit and do a special event or something like that. But, for the most part, I don't see it as those types of businesses. I see them more as individuals with fireworks and things. And I would be open to what you guys kind of witness and see.
I mean, we do a social media blast. We drive around, stop people. I mean, we're a little more lax 4th of July weekend. I mean, you could probably sit around and just keep writing tickets and things like that. It's more the ones that are going up or, that are within the village, which we don't find those. It's usually the M80 type major blasts and, and they leave behind the residue. So it's not hard to find which house and whatnot. So we follow up on those things, if we see them, we stop it, but, and a lot of, we do a blast, like this is the ordinance, this is the thing. Problem is that, people start popping them 3 days before,
That's what I'm
5 days
thinking.
after, those kind of things. So,
The weekend before and the weekend after.
So, I mean,
Stuff
people-
on pets.
people get citations. I mean, I know that there's been talk about even just starting to increase some of these fines. I don't know when the last time fines were increased in this town, but I know that it's been talked about. Some of the fines are very, very low because they're municipal fines. So, maybe it's an adjustment on fines all across the board. I don't know. I don't know what, you'd hope people would be mindful of their neighbor, but for example, I mean, everybody knows that we have an issue with dog feces, right? Because it's everywhere. It's on every social media. I'm glad, some of the social medias aren't allowing that anymore on there, which is very good. But we've had people where we caught them doing it, told them to clean it, and they're like, I don't have a bag. Because I have bags in each one of our squad cars. Provide them bags. I had a guy basically say to one of my officers, I'm not cleaning it. And so the officer's like, okay, then hang on. And he wrote him a ticket. He paid the ticket. And I'm like, but that's your dog feces. It's like, and the argument was, this is fertilizer. And I told the officer, I said, I would have said, then fertilize your own lawn. But I mean, we're not gonna get into an argument with a guy or a physical, it's like, okay, fine, here's your citation. And I mean, this is a extreme, case, but the other thing is when we walk around and, or drive around, sometimes it feels weird because you're almost stalking the dog to see if it's gonna do. And it's weird. I mean, we have other things to do, to see if we can catch it. When we're around, people don't allow their dogs to, defecate. It's, the other thing that we just try to encourage is people to call us. Like, okay, they know their neighbor's doing it. They don't have to tell us we don't have to know who reported it. It could be anonymous. And we could follow up on it. We could be the quote unquote bad guy. But I think people just don't want to be the bad guy. And social media is the easier way to complain about things because it's just out there. And you're usually going to find 50 people that agree with you, and like that drama. So I don't know what to do. I'll be honest with
I
that.
do think the fireworks one, I mean, I think some of the local ordinances should be jacked up the prices. Because just the follow-up, the issue, the ticket, the clerical, or, I think we should look at that or get some input that we support increasing the fines, because people remember a $250 fine more than they remember a $40.
Yeah.
That's all I would say, I guess.
I mean, maybe that's the answer. I don't know. I mean, I'm not.
It's probably not an answer, but it's probably, I would feel better if, and I don't, this was kind of crazy, but I had a bunch of conference calls today, like literally watched 2 dogs. And they were both picked up and I was like, cheer. I was like,
Well, I've gotten in a habit of, if they do clean up, I pull over and say, thank you for doing that. And they're like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
why would they
Because
do
most
that?
people do that.
Well, I
You
knew
know,
most
it's-
of the neighbors and I fully expected them to, but it's just, it was nice to kind of make
Yeah.
them feel a little better. But, and I don't think every time there's stuff posted on social media, we need to discuss it, but the things as they got later and later, New Year or July 4th weekend, that's when I was kind of getting ticked off myself, so. I would, maybe see what the fine structure is and see if we could increase it.
I think there's a whole process of it. I think you have to involve the courts and village board, of course, to adjust that. So, I mean, maybe when you're talking to Paul about this
Okay.
other topic, maybe say, we're starting to think that some of the ordinances are a little low. And,
Fine structure.
fine structure. What is the process to do that? I'm sure he'd be able to tell you.
Well, and what I'll try to bring back to the next meeting then is just the fine structure and what the process is to increase it.
Okay.
Because inflation's real, right? We're all paying more for everything else. Why not pay a little more for your transgressions?
So far I've included the discussion of possible action of regarding the public nuisance ordinance again, so we get a report on that.
Yep.
And then how about instead of fireworks or loud and unnecessary noise, just I'll put down regarding fine, something with fines.
Fine structure, fine table or whatever.
Okay.
We kind of did ways of fireworks together, but I think the discussion has been a motion in a second. Future items of discussion,
So I just have those two.
maybe a little update on just yard sign
Okay.
progress. I've received a lot of positive feedback about them. I think if we can do a social media poster too, and let people know they're available contacts, available here, hopefully we get a few more.
That's a good idea.
I don't know if it's necessary to bring it here unless it kind of goes sideways in the village board, but there will be a topic in the village board regarding the crossing guard. I cannot find a crossing guard to handle that Church Street. And it's not sustainable for our officers to be there because I stationed an officer there last year because people were upset that there wasn't somebody there. We're not paying very well. And second, or B, we're not, the times, I mean, they're tough for somebody to handle. So-
That's not through the district?
No.
Okay.
So crossing guards across basically are the police department's
Okay.
responsibility. So even Madison is having a heck of a time finding crossing guards. They're just not available. So we can't position an officer there. That's not in the best interest of the community. Last year, what I did was I positioned an officer there and then I supplemented by having another officer work, on patrol, kind of keeping an eye on traffic, but then if you have an accident, that's it. Nobody's doing anything. So nobody's doing the crossing guard, nobody's doing any patrolling because they got to go to the crash. And let's face it, that's where we have most people. So I don't know what to do, but it can't be an officer standing there. And, it also gives a false sense of security because parents are thinking someone's going to be there. So drop them off. And then all of a sudden the officer's gone. And then who crossed them and God forbid somebody get hit. So I think it's got to be a serious conversation. I don't think throwing money at it is going to work. I mean, I think the Middleton PD pays like 18-20 bucks an hour and they can't find people. So it's not about the money. It's not that much money. It's the hours, I think, mostly, and just people feel like I have better things to do than to sit down there in the morning.
Can the chamber like post or businesses post?
Anybody could post.
Anybody
Make sure we
should
can
share.
call.
Yep, they can
Okay.
call me. I mean, I
Okay.
would love to
I
hire
used to have
somebody.
social media posts, so the chamber could just share it.
Okay.
copy it and
Yeah,
share it.
I've posted it probably
Yeah. I've seen them all.
10 times since this has been going on.
Okay.
And I've had 2 calls, and one of them was a gentleman who wants to go into law enforcement. He's in school. He said, I think I can handle it. I said, well, this is Monday through Friday. Oh yeah, probably not gonna work because I'm in school. I'm like, okay. So, and then there was another gentleman who said he could maybe handle it. And then he's like, but I just want to do it part-time. So just when needed. I'm like, I need you every day of the school
And
year.
it is per time, right?
It's a
This
half
is-
hour.
Yeah, it's just a half hour in the morning.
Right, morning.
So it's an hour a day.
Right.
It's just that it's an hour a day and it's split up. Right now we have, the budget is 12 bucks an hour. That's what we have budgeted. I even bumped it up to 15, saying even if I go over budget a little bit, I was trying to do whatever I could.
Yeah.
Nobody's biting. So,
What are the times?
so the first shift would be 7:45 to 8:15. And the second shift would be 3:30 to 4. And I mean, the kids cross. The thing about it is you gotta be well-trained because the kids hardly listen. We've been in uniform and they jump off the curb. We're like, whoa, what are you doing? So,
And training's provided.
yeah, I will provide training, whether myself or one of the officers. And we give you all the equipment for it. So we just need people, but it's a big commitment. I mean, a school year is long. So ideally, it would be nice to get somebody who can do it in the morning, and that's all they do, and somebody who can do it in the evening. But I'm not getting even that. I mean, I'm not getting commitment for that. So the only other option would be that the village board say, well, we're making parks do it, and they're gonna push back on it too,
Pushback.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what the discussion's gonna be, but it can't be a police officer because if we get an emergency, we're gone, and that's not gonna work.
I mean, unfortunately, the way it kind of fits with it the best in the structure is if they have 7 hours of other work.
Yeah, that would be perfect. Yeah,
And,
yeah,
There's
they could,
probably some.
you could start a meter maid program, then we could write parking
Yeah,
parking tickets all day long. But the first thing-
Yeah, no.
But the first thing is you gotta get parking spots, because there aren't very many of those either. So it's not gonna. And I just can't, I mean, it's not beneficial to the community to put an officer there, and I can't, the officer portion is one, but it's just not sustainable in budget, like to try to have 2 people on when I need night coverage. We got burglaries happening at night, so I can't, it just doesn't feel quite right. So, yeah, it feels like it should be the school's responsibility, but it's not. It's not, so. I did notify the schools today that we are not doing that to give them time to get their parents notified. I also told them it was gonna be on the board agenda, but I believe that they'll say, yep, we understand why the police wouldn't do it, and maybe come up with another solution or whatever, but I wanted the schools to have at least a couple weeks to educate the parents, because I think that there's just a perception. I mean, now we've gotten complaints right there at Bear because people drop their kids off and cross at that spot. Like they don't want to go into the mess of the traffic. So then they drop their kids off thinking, okay, someone's gonna be there, so. I mean, hopefully we could hire somebody, we have the budget for it, it's just not gonna be us, we can't. I mean, there's so many other streets where kids are running across, it'd be, I mean, there's some kids are standing in the middle of the street waiting for a bus. So we need to patrol those areas and keep people slow. Yeah.
Well, it's unfortunate, that's the only spot.
Yeah, it would be beneficial to go multiple spots and at least that spot's got the beacon, but the kids don't use it. If we're the ones that push the button to slow people down, the kids they don't take the time. They look one way, the other way, jump the curb on a bike and that's it. So anyway, I don't know if I'll bring it back here, if it just, unless there's some serious discussion about it. But it'll be too late. School will have started before we even meet again, so.
We're meeting Monday.
Yeah, this Monday, right? Yeah.
I do have a question. I don't know if this is even within the village to do anything because it's a private property. But has anybody else or do you have any complaints about, I call it the uncontrolled intersection at the by the pig? Now that the hardware store is open, there's been a couple of times that I've come around there by, you go by General So's there. It's like a T intersection and just, it's a bad.
Yeah, it's
bad
kind
road.
of a blind area,
Yeah,
especially with Reyes Tacos, they get pretty
Right.
busy. So you've got a lot of cars, sometimes it feels like, are they moving, not moving, and so
And I
people,
just found
we
that
haven't
the
had any-
hardware store is open.
we haven't had any crashes and we haven't had any complaints. I think people are just getting used to all that congestion. Is there not talk though also on the village board that that's all gonna be redone? And there's gonna be some new stuff done there?
On that particular.
Not
intersection?
that part,
Yeah,
but the
there's
other,
supposed to be some more work done. down
like,
there,
there's some proposals of that, so
So that's
maybe that-
technically
By
a village
that
park
park,
right there?
Yeah, by the park.
There's,
closer to the Ace, right?
closer to the base, yes.
But yeah, I would probably open it up.
Um,
I mean, it's congested, like noon,
Right.
people are like flying in from everywhere.
It came on my radar because I was going that way and I don't know who was a young kid that was going towards a hardware store to work, but he came zipping through on his bike and yeah, I was on my brakes. It was, I mean, need somebody to come by.
Maybe when they're talking about that,
Yeah.
bring it up and say, hey, I mean, they're talking about construction,
They are, yes.
so.
And I've seen it, you see it a little more when it's busier, like trout days or
Yeah,
wine walks.
definitely.
But then I do think people, from all the town area, if they're shopping at the bigger the hardware store, that's a weird spot.
Right, I didn't know if like a yield sign or just something like that. Bring their attention.
Next meeting date.
Yep. Plans on the 13th.
September 13th work well,
Yes.
7 PM, good. All right, I would entertain a motion to. I will. Randy, a motion,
A second.
got a second, Tammy, any